This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
Fist. We bring you the Nerdy Manroom Show with your host, Hassel and Monster. Monster Brother, it's been a while.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it has. So let's go ahead and thank our sponsor first, and then we can delve into some of that. But we want to make sure we thank our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles. You can find them at their store in Tifton, Georgia on 305 Main Street. You can also find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles. Make sure you visit them for all your nerdy needs and help them support the local artist community through their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite.
Outstanding.
And as you said, it has been a while, so we want to make sure we update everyone. It's honestly just been, hey, my travel schedule for work for my day job has been a little hectic lately, so I've been in and out, and then you had some personal stuff going on with the family there for a week or so, and we just haven't been able to connect, but trying to get back to a normal routine, and you'll see some changes in the format of the show going forward. We've got some ideas we want to set up a little bit differently to make the show more enjoyable for you, as well as for consideration of time, I guess is the best way to say it, because we are a little bit strapped, because as you and I were talking before this, I don't see my travel slowing down now that the pandemic is pretty much almost officially over. We have been very busy at work, and it's go every minute. So just trying to find a new format to make sure we can fit it in.
Back to this global domination. They are ruling things. So,
speaking of that, I got to throw this out there, because I did yesterday. We originally talked about recording on Saturday, but I had already bought tickets to the Fathom events where they're doing G.I. Joe, the movie from 1987, in the theaters for the first time in 35 years. Me and the kid were going to go watch it yesterday, and we got there to watch it. And so these are done. They do it like twice in a week usually when they do these events, or 2 or 3 times a week when they do these events. But it's almost like having a satellite. It starts at a certain time, and it's like the pay-per-view channel. So it's playing at every theater, but you have to be tuned into it for that theater to get it. So we're sitting in the theater, and I'm like, man, it's supposed to start at 1 o'clock. It's 1:04. They haven't even turned the screen on yet. Yeah, the screen should have been on the whole time, because it was already leading up to it for like the last 10 minutes before it. There's like a little pre-show thing from Hasbro Pulse talking about their new G.I. Joe classified figures and how many they're going to have by the end of 2023. I think they're shooting for 100, but have only announced.
Was the number I saw today 100?
But they've only announced and shown up to 80 from what's already been out and to what they've announced so far.
That's that many. Last I saw was like 65.
It's actually,
that was counting those 3 blue ninja figures.
If you include some of the others that they've announced but not even shown product of, it's actually up to 80. 81 if the Serpentor rumor comes true, which is a rumor right now. So they got a long ways to go to hit 100 by 2023. But anyway, they were supposed to show that, and then it started off right into the movie from there. Well, since my theater turned it on late, we missed the whole intro, which is one of the biggest things I wanted to see on the big screen, was that intro for G.I. Joe, because that intro for the movie is one of the best animated things they've ever had.
That's like one of the best part of that movie is that intro. It just kicks everything off. I mean, that is there to where Optimus Prime's arrival, where he kicks ass, and the Transformers movie was that big moment. That was your big moment for G.I. Joe. I mean, that is like,
And it was disappointing, but we got to watch the rest of the movie. But I was sitting there, and I was like, all right, I'm not one to really complain, but the folks behind us were peeved. I mean, they were mad. They went and complained to folks. They went there and tried to figure out if they could rewind and re-show it, but it's a live stream, basically, so they couldn't do anything. And it even popped up at the bottom of the screen that it's like trending live, and they were trying to rewind. I was like, that's not going to work on this. But, I mean, they were nice enough to say, hey, we'll give, if you guys want another Fathom event ticket, we'll give you free tickets to that since we messed that up, or those are a little bit less expensive than the normal movie tickets here. So they're like, you can do that, or if you want a free ticket to, something else. Like me and my son were both there, but the tickets for that are 2 tickets for that are just a little bit more than 1 ticket for a regular screening there. So these were like $8 tickets, and the regular screenings for during the day are like 11. So like they gave us one free ticket. So we're like, we want to watch Lightyear anyway. So we got one free ticket to Lightyear, and I only had to buy one. So we went and watched that after that one. So we had a double feature at the movies. But yeah,
well, it was one of the theaters has Sarge actually there. I don't know if that was part of maybe the live stream beforehand or what.
I don't know. It might have
one
been
of the theaters.
It might have been because I know when we went and watched the Transformer ones, and then they've got these shorts now where you can go look at them on Hasbro Pulse's YouTube channel. Yeah. But they did stop motion animation shorts with different little figures that they had been putting out for the last year or so from the Kingdom and Earthrise set in the studio series. Like they had a one where Jazz is playing the guitar singing "You Got the Touch."
Oh, that'd be cool.
But they were doing that with the stop motion figures before the movie, and I thought it was going to be something like that for G.I. Joe, but it was more just it's the announcement of Hasbro Pulse, and that's the only thing I saw. So he may have done an intro for it. They didn't talk about that in the article I read. But yeah, we missed out on that. But yeah, it was nice to go see it. It was just one of those slightly disappointing things. But long story short, we talked about that because I did want to share that my background is different because I am still traveling for work and I'm out of the house again today. But so instead of you staring at the back of a random wall in a hotel room, here's our logo. So as we go forward and we have new,
we'll shamelessly plug this thing.
Yeah, we're going to go forward. We're going to have new formats for the show so that I will be able to shoot them some from the road, so you won't be able to see necessarily always my collection and maybe this logo. But we're going to probably delve out of the news a little bit, maybe back off on that just because it does take a lot of time for us to cover the news. But we'll discuss that a little bit more when you get to see the new format. Today, we just wanted to go through a few things because we haven't had a chance to talk about a lot of stuff going on in the world of nerddom out there. So, we can delve into a few things we haven't got the chance to talk other than maybe a few texts here and there. And even that's been limited for me somewhat, to be honest with you. So there's several things we just wanted to cover today, but I know a lot of it wrestling. But before we jump into wrestling, why don't we jump into probably the biggest thing, that we both watched lately is the Obi-Wan series.
Oh, dude. How fucking great was that?
So I'm gonna be honest. Everybody was talking about how great it was, and don't get me wrong, he's one of my favorite characters, and I love Ewan McGregor playing him. But up until the last two episodes, it just wasn't getting it for me. Like it wasn't bad.
The first one was a slow go. The first episode was like, yeah. And Sable started building steams, and after that, for me, it was like just firing on all cylinders, and it just got there.
So it didn't for me because I felt like, well, that was interesting. Broke my pen. I was playing with my pen, and apparently it broke in my hand. So, but so
force is strong with this one.
Yeah, for me, it didn't get to me until because I was enjoying it, and I thought it was a good television show, but it wasn't everything that I had hyped it up in my head to be, I guess, or expected it to be. And a lot of that became, I couldn't reconcile where it was on there against where we see Obi-Wan at the beginning of A New Hope, or even where the one scene he had in Rebels where he kills Darth Maul. Yeah. I was like, how does this reconcile with that? Because he's so cut off from everything. He's not himself. He's even scared to turn on his lightsaber at this point, right? I was like, how is this going to relate back to that? Now, if you don't give me something in the last episode or so that puts us back in that frame, this series is not going to hit it for me. Now, I will say that they did that in the last episode.
Oh, man.
But watching the training montage between him and Anakin in episode 5 and them talking about him still teaching Anakin, and then the episode 6, fight and everything between the two of them, that's what put it back in that frame of, okay, this is how Obi-Wan was still the master the last time they fought, and Anakin was still just a learner.
There was so many small and subtle things they did in that final episode that put things into perspective. Because there was a lot, like I was going into the last episode thinking, well, they're going to leave themselves some good plot holes here. It's just hard to, correlate the future going forward. There was just so many small things they did. It was like, holy shit, it connects and it makes it. And the pain in his eyes when he realizes, when Vader tells him, I'm not your failure. You didn't kill Skywalker. I killed Skywalker. I mean, it was just like, and you see the pain in his eyes, but at the same time, it's like, okay, he's not a lying piece of shit when he tells Luke that Darth Vader killed his father. I mean,
yeah, well, and it still made sense too. Like, okay, how was Obi-Wan so feared or respected by Vader in Episode 4, A New Hope? Well, now here's why.
Because even after he had, what did he tell him? He said, you know, in episode 4 or 5, when they had their first battle, he said, you're weak and you've got become weaker. And then by the last episode, he's like, all your powers have returned, and it showed him, when he's standing there like this and it just stops all the rocks. It's like, oh shit, Obi-Wan's still a badass, and it was, wow.
So for me, the entire series strung together, I probably would have rated it like a 7.5 until those last couple episodes, and that bumped it up to about probably around an 8.5 and 9 for me. The only thing that bumped it up any higher than that was that final cameo when Qui-Gon's standing there, and it's actually Liam Neeson.
Dude, leading into that, I was like so let down because that wasn't there at any point. And I was like, and I was sitting there in my mind, I'm thinking, man, as great as this has been, I can't believe they fucking got through this and didn't have Qui-Gon show up. And then when he shows, it was like, oh.
And then what he tells him is like, I've been looking. He's like, I've been here all along. You just didn't know where to look.
Oh man, that was.
Or dude, you just weren't ready to see it yet.
So good. It was so good. It was like.
Have you seen the article where they asked Liam Neeson lately? They he had an interview and they're like, how did they get you to come back for this? Because you don't see him in a lot of interviews. Now he's always respected and liked the Star Wars stuff from any interviews I've seen with him, but he never talks about it much. They don't ask him much about it because he's only been in one movie and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Now he did come back and do the voice of Qui-Gon for Rebels, but nobody really touches on that because it was a short animated series, and it's like okay.
Yeah.
But he was asked in this, they asked him in a recent interview, he's like, how did they get you to come back for this? Because like it was some huge surprise. He's like, his first response, well, if they were going to have Qui-Gon in, he said, I just couldn't stand anybody else playing that character. It's like, okay.
And I was curious about it because it was such a small part. I was like, did they, because like with Vader, they didn't get James Earl Jones to do the voice. They used computer systems and whatnot and found, dialogue.
He has done some of the dialogue, and then they upped it up with computers and stuff because he's actually still credited for the voice.
Is he? Yeah. Something I read, it just said something along the lines about they just used a combination of computers and found.
They did some of that because of his age and stuff. I don't think he was able to shoot the entire series, but he did some voice work for him, and they took the computers and generated the rest of it based off of that.
I was just curious if they took Hayden Christensen's voice and kind of audioed it to where they need it. But
I was
wondering with Qui-Gon if that's what they did the same thing, because it's like he looked so close to what he did in episode 1, which he's ironically at the right age to be what Qui-Gon was elderly wise. So that wasn't far off, and plus he's like Ra's al Ghul in real life. He don't fucking age. Yeah. So he looked so close. I was just like, well, did they just smoke and mirrors us here?
No, it was actually him, and he said, they asked him and said, hey, how did they get you to come back? He said it was a half a day's work because it was just him showing up to shoot that one scene. He said, and I just couldn't stand anybody else playing the character. I was like, well, that's respectable then, because that's your character and you believe in that. But you talk about how they aged. Did you notice the only person who's in any of those movies who seems to have aged at all is Hayden Christensen? Because
even with the de-aging process in that flashback, I was like, this cat got crow's feet.
But he looks like
Hogan's.
He looks like he's in his. I don't know how old he actually is, but he looks like he's in his 30s, the 40s now, right? But when he shot those movies, what was he in his late teens, early 20s? He's gonna age. Young man. But the rest of them look like they have aged none. I mean, even if you look at Natalie Portman, who's gonna at some point play Padme again, they've said she looks like she hasn't aged. She's just gotten more buff for her role in Thor. I mean, but she hasn't aged any. Obi-Wan looked exactly the same. Ewan McGregor didn't look like he changed. Qui-Gon looked the same.
How much did you geek out when he said hello there? Like, come on.
Oh, that didn't get me as much as when he pulled his Obi-Wan pose, the where he's pointing the two fingers at you with the sword overhead, which is the most asinine-looking fighting pose ever. But he pulls it off somehow, and he does it every time he fights in a big fight. He didn't do it up to that last episode. Yeah,
it's about to go down at that point. But I think the other really big moment for me in the entire series was when Vader done the Star Killer, where he stops the ship, brings it down. I was like, dude, oh, you know why this motherfucker is the baddest son of a bitch in the galaxy.
Yeah, that was a nice.
You know what I'm saying? That's like, ooh.
It almost, honestly, for me, up until like episode 5, it almost felt like it was Darth Vader's show or the Inquisitor's show because it was all about them and what they were doing. And Obi-Wan was in it, but he wasn't the Obi-Wan you expected because he's barely using the Force and it's hurting him to use it. He's not firing off his lightsaber. He's not defending the meek and defenseless for the most part. I mean, he finally goes back to his old ways by the end of it. But up until that, that's why for me it wasn't as enjoyable because I wanted to see him be that the whole time. But I will give them credit; they built to it well.
And speaking of the Inquisitors, I don't get the fan hate for Third Sister at all.
I don't either. I don't understand that a bit.
She was amazing. I mean, she was such a great villain. I mean, and then you get why when you find out, oh shit, she was like one of the only younglings to survive. She witnessed it.
Yeah, and I don't understand all the hate, and not just in that, but so we talked about this before, you and I have, but difference between fandom and a fan community, right? The broader fandom, you will have people in there who will diss any and everything just because it wasn't the one thing they liked. Just like this show, it wasn't my favorite up until the very end, and then I was like, okay, now it is one of my favorite shows, but I'm not going to diss it by any means. It just wasn't exactly what I wanted, but that's where that fandom starts. But then the fan community is more like, hey, we can get along. We can agree to disagree, but still like the same stuff. Some Star Wars and Transformers are two of the worst ones to get into because people will hate so much on things they don't like versus just saying, yeah, I didn't like that.
That's our society. I guess it's just it's built into us now. It's hip to hate shit, whether it's justified or not.
But I don't understand the whole thing of her and the racism stuff that she got. And I was like, I don't get it. I was like, whether you like her or not, she's just hired to play a character. Why are we hating on her in real life and sending her death threats and hate mail and stuff? I'm like,
I thought she'd done an incredible role. She'd done a great job, and I definitely don't even get the racism, especially in Star Wars. Half the characters are fucking aliens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not other Caucasian people here. I mean, come on. I just don't get it.
My biggest hate thing for any of the Inquisitor stuff is the fact that we stabbed 2 of these fools through the stomach and chest with lightsabers, and they are back with no explanation of how they survived.
That was just what I was about to say. That is my one big gripe with the entire series. The killing blow that took out Qui-Gon, the guy that had he lived, Anakin would not have became Vader.
Yeah.
But what killed him, the killing blow for him, 2 of these son of bitches take it and they just limp off. She goes to a whole other damn planet without hitting her back to tank. And goes and would have killed Luke Skywalker at a young age.
Yeah, and the Grand Inquisitor, he just like walks up like, hey, you have to expect Vader to look to him and say, "Didn't you die? I walked it off."
Yeah, I was just like, I mean, I didn't get that. That was my only major gripe with the show. Other than that, I thought it was pretty much a masterpiece. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That didn't make any sense, but I did not understand the hate. I said she was fine in the role. Actually, I don't know that I had anybody. There was nobody in the series that I actually didn't like how they portrayed what they were doing.
They did a great job of casting. I love the little girl that plays Leia. She did and she gives you that vibe like, okay, she was spitfire and hell even as a little child, and you get the correlation and why she sought Obi-Wan out in A New Hope. Because I mean, hey, it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. And I'll tell you this too. We won't spend a ton of time on this because I don't know if you've watched it, but the other show that's premiering on Disney Plus right now, which is not getting as much press or intrigue as it probably should because of they kind of timed it badly with Obi-Wan being on at the same time. They probably should have waited till it started. Yeah, man, that show was fantastic. I
actually have not watched the first episode yet. I haven't watched it or The Boys yet. But I have the new season of The Boys, which I'm kind of ashamed of because I loved it. The last the seasons, but I haven't sat down to watch this yet because I was just typically my Wednesday nights I watch AEW. It rounds off at 10. I can throw Obi-Wan on. Then I get like super excited and have to go try to lay down and go to sleep when I'm pumped.
Yeah.
That's typically how it's been.
I'm caught up on The Boys except for this past week, and everybody loves that show and talks so greatly about it. And story wise, yeah, it's a great in depth show. What they portray on the screen a lot of times, especially this season to me, has felt like they're doing something to be shocking and do the shock value just to do it. It's like, did you really have to show that scene? Who really cared to see that?
And the way they done it in the other seasons, it worked. But don't just do it just to do it. Like,
that's
don't
what
have
that's what it's
gratuitous
felt like.
violence just to have it. You know.
I mean, the very opening scene with a superpowered person. I should say very opening, but one of the earliest scenes of superpowered people that the boys are against in this season. It's just the most shock value thing I could say without being sounding terrible. That's all it was complete shock. It's like, why they basically took the theory of Ant-Man and Thanos and expanded that in a grossly grotesque way for the very first death in there.
All right then.
So have fun with that.
Well, I tried to watch Diabolical this because I seen they were on like 14 to 20 minutes each, and it was like, okay, I can just throw this on while I'm doing something. And like I watched 2 or 3 of them, and it was just like
I watched 2
it's
of
just
them.
like watching really violent Looney Tunes. Is all it was.
I watched.
I couldn't get further.
It might have been the first 2 I watched, and I kind of somewhat like the one. I think it's one of the first ones with the baby and the dad, and he adopts the baby before they kill it, because that one was okay, and then the other 2 or 3 that I watched were just like, I can't watch the rest. I didn't finish it.
I watched it up through the one where the butcher cooks up that the aqua guy or the speedster or whatever the hell he was, and he like gets all amped up in Homelanders. He goes up into outer space and comes back. It's like, that's about as far as I made it.
Yeah. Going back to Miss Marvel though from Disney Plus, they keep harping on it in the news. Oh, it's the most lowest rated Disney Plus show. Okay, it's still highly rated. It's just the lowest one you've got. Okay.
The ratings will probably go up now. I mean,
that's the thing. Everybody was
put anything against that. Honestly, that's been so highly sought after for what 2 years.
Exactly. Yeah, and the show for Miss Marvel is actually the girl playing her for one is fantastic playing the character. You believe she is a fangirl because if you watch interviews and stuff with her, she's sitting there naming off all the characters that's in the comics and stuff and wanting to be. Yeah. That's like they're like, what would you like to see on screen for if you had more to do with Miss Marvel or another series? So she's like, I want a champions team, and Kate Bishop as Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, and Ironheart. She said, because all these young characters coming in, put us together and let's do a little miniseries or something. But she's all into that. Yeah, she's all into it. She actually got on an interview and they're like, they were asking her stuff about Doctor Strange. She's like, I love the movie except for the fact that they called it Marvel 616. She said, that's the comic book universe. That's not the MCU universe. She said they need to change the number back to what it was before because they already said it was this number. I was like, you have to watch it to know that stuff. But she's fantastic. I love they have a lot of cutscenes in it. It makes you feel like it's a younger person coming of age as well as a superhero show because like there's these cutscenes where she starts daydreaming and it's like animation in the background of the characters or of her being a superhero and stuff, and even her text bubbles instead of just being text, they'll write the windows on the text of her window where she's sitting there next to her window texting her friend. I was like, just those little graphic things like that are really eye catching and done very well. It's a fantastic show, and I don't even like the character necessarily. I don't dislike the character from the comics, but I don't like how I don't like the power set they've given her in the show and how they've changed her from being an Inhuman to how she gets her powers. I get why they did it because they haven't really. Well, I somewhat get it because they haven't really. They act like the Inhumans don't exist other than Black Bolt making one appearance in the movies and the TV show that they act like never happened. They're probably
looking at the aspect that they're finna to give us Fantastic Four. I mean, it's coming.
Yeah.
They don't want somebody to say, well, because a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe fans, they don't pick up comic books. They don't read comic books.
No.
So when Mr. Fantastic does show up, say 2 years after Miss Marvel, and their skill sets are very similar in a lot of ways as far as the stretching of hands and feet and whatnot. They probably were like, no, we don't want to cut. If she's gonna be Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel, let's give her some energy powers or whatever. I really hadn't seen what her power base is in the show other than a few like clips I've seen, and like she's doing some energy stuff. So I was like,
It's basically like they make you feel like she's basically got similar powers to what Quasar would if he was on screen.
okay.
It's kind of how it feels. And don't get me wrong, I get why they did it, but I guess my gripe is you had Inhumans and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you had an Inhumans TV show. Now you say, well, as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. progressed, it kind of went away from the MCU, so it's not part of it anymore. It's like, you had 2 TV shows talking about Inhumans, and then you threw one into the show. You could have, don't act like she's not one, and you can still give her these light-based, energy-based powers, but say she was an Inhuman, versus just acting like Inhumans don't exist and she got the powers some other way. I guess the origin of the powers is my problem so far. Not even what they are, it's just the origin of it. It's like, But honestly, really good show. I'd recommend it to anybody who likes any of the MCU stuff. And, I've liked Moon Knight and this one a lot just because they're a far take from what you normally get from the movies and stuff.
Moon Knight was the one that was, for me, was the slow go. Like, it took episodes for me to just get into it. It's like, I watched the first 2 or 3 and I was just like, I'm a Moon Knight fan. I was not totally sold in the first few episodes, but I went back and rewatched 1 or 2 of them, and I was like, and then I started, clicking. It's like, okay, we're getting there.
Yeah, it has some slow points in it and some slow stuff, and I would like to see more of the action. But man, when they did finally start showing some action in that one, it was spot on. I was like, okay, I can get with this one.
It had a slow progression. And then everybody was just, they kept speculating Doctor Doom was going to show at some point. And that kind of threw it. For me, that was a bit of a letdown because it was so hyped and on. Like a lot of times when it starts getting that hyped, there's some truth to it. Somebody's leaked something. So the whole time I'm kind of like, okay, I'm looking for Easter eggs. I'm watching for, Latveria or something, and nothing. We don't get it. And it's like, okay, then. Well,
Yeah, it was still enjoyable. It did have a lot of slow points, and I think when it got to its final episode, some of the stuff too with some of Moon Knight having certain powers and stuff, I was like, he's low level power at best, but they kind of went a little.
They've done a little too much with the schizophrenia for me. I don't know. I'm not wrong. He does battle that in the books, but up until I don't know a couple of years ago, I don't remember that honestly just being the main focus of the book either. But now in the Avengers, the way I think was it when Jason Aaron was writing the title, he made Moon Knight kick the whole Avengers ass. He was even picking up, Mjolnir because it's a moon rock.
Well, he had that, and they had Khonshu was actually empowering and inviting him at that point, and giving him all these different supernatural Ankhs or whatever you call them, the Ankh symbol that they have. He would take one of those and he could absorb another hero's powers and take it into itself. Like he took Iron Fist. He took some of Doctor Strange's mystical abilities through some of those little So the more of those talismans he was wearing, the more powerful he got, which is why he was there. But still, I got it for that one because Khonshu was such a more than just being his avatar. He was basically being possessed by him.
So Khonshu, you're a real dick,
He was funny as crap in that show, though. He was a dick, but he was hilarious.
Yeah. I enjoyed him and the hippo. Both of those were.
The hippo was hilarious. So. I love the hippo. But with that, let's jump over to wrestling because we had a lot of wrestling stuff going on that we haven't covered, haven't talked about, and kind of wanted to delve into that. So, your pick, sir. You're the larger fan. You want to go WWE or AEW first?
How do we not start out with this Vince McMahon sex scandal?
Oh, dude.
You mark my words you mark my words right now. Before this is over, more women will come out of the woodworks on Vince McMahon than Bill Cosby had.
They're already. He's got so many lawsuits from so many different ones investigating now how all the NDAs that have been paid off. But I don't know how he comes out of this and stays in charge. But I will tell you this: the power move he pulled by going to both SmackDown and Raw. And having the fans because those fans who are there are the fans who are there for life, right? Those are the actual true fans. That's not the common, casual, general population. That's the true WWE fan of the show. For him to walk out and they are singing his music praising the fact that he's out there, despite all the trouble he's in. And him walk out there and say, "Bask in my glory," basically, and everybody does it. So how does the board say, "Well, shit, how do we fire this dude now? Because the ratings are going to drop and we're going to lose."
Oh yeah, man. Several of the superstars have actually said it was nothing more than just a power play, him to show, hey, look, I don't fucking care. You know, I'm Vince McMahon. What are you gonna do?
To his point, how do they survive? If you see the fans like that, and you're on the board, and you're like, all right, all of my stock is based on how well this show performs. What the fuck do we do if we get rid of this dude?
And Stephanie takes over for him after she got run off for being incompetent in marketing of all things. So you bring her back to put her as the CEO. That tells you right there, Vince is puppeting. Vince still runs the day-to-day creative. The only thing I've seen that they have changed at all is Johnny Ace got the axe.
Yeah, he has no protection.
Yeah. Well, the woman got passed off to him as his leftovers. Anyways, I mean that's another subject we'll touch in a minute. But now Bruce Pritchard's talent relations, another one of Vince's puppets. So he's working talent relations and CEO. So it's like, okay, nothing
really.
Triple H coming back is really all I've seen. Triple H coming back and taking over NXT, which is probably a good thing if they leave him alone.
If they leave him alone, him and Shawn Michaels actually ran NXT pretty well until they got involved, and now it's going
up until 2.0, and that's when it just. And that's when they had to start having Raw and SmackDown superstars occasionally go there for 2 months at a time.
Yeah.
Because it's just bad. I mean, they had no character development. And what they are developing is basically bad talent that wouldn't make it on SmackDown in a SmackDown type role. I mean.
And just, so here's some of the speculation I've heard too is that did they run Stephanie off from her job and say she did a bad job and drag her through the mud? Because the board knew this was coming. They're like, well, if we make her look like she's having problems with her own dad, and we can still put her in as CEO, still having McMahon running the thing. So there's rumors that she might not really have been that bad at her job, but that's kind of how they swerved it a little bit to get in their favor.
The rumor also came out this week that some of the reason why she was exited out is her and Triple H were having marital issues, like severe marital issues that were starting to become public knowledge just before, he had his heart issue, and now they're trying to work through this. And I don't know how true that is. That was just something I'd read this week, and I was like, oh, well, that's another.
I heard that one too, but I heard that one, and then I heard that was supposedly debunked or whatever, that it was more of the whole she wasn't doing well at her job thing. But did you know that Vince is still in charge when Bruce Pritchard is promoted back into given more responsibility, given Johnny Ace's position when he's booted out?
And now the superstars are happy about it, from what I understand.
But Stephanie fired Bruce Pritchard last time she was over him. So how in the world is she gonna? She didn't pick him for that role because she fired him once before already.
No, he's one of Vince's stooges that even when he's at odds with the company, if anyone that listens to something to wrestle with, you can tell he still chooses his words carefully. And he takes the company stance. Like anytime Conrad really questions him on some bullshit, that all of us is like, come on, dog. Oh no, we did the right thing. No, you didn't. I mean, you're sucking ass because you know that one day you'll go back. So he's keeping his words soft and sweet. He gets called out quite regularly.
He is an ultimate dude. So is John Laurinaitis. But you know what? Here's the couple of things about Vince that I'll say with it though, right? So Vince, yes, he might have done some unethical thing with company stuff by giving the lady the raise after 1 year that was a 100% raise. And yes,
she's already making twice what she should be making before that. Yeah, the average paralegal in Connecticut makes $45,000 a year. She gets in the door at $100,000, screws Vince. She's making $200,000. The year that they're laying talent off, good talent, due to budgeting cutbacks, and then she just tossed off to Johnny Ace like, she's yours now, pal.
Whew. So he did unethical things there with the company stuff. So that might be a reason for him to lose his position. But now, the relationship that has already been said by her as well as him that it was consensual. So there was no you do this, I'll give you this. It was a consensual thing, and then he just tacked on benefits to it later, which is probably immoral. But the $3 million or whatever
It was hush
paid,
money.
yeah, but that all came out of his pocket. That part was not company money. So on that part, he didn't defy the law. That part, he just said, "Yeah, don't say anything in here."
Yeah, the only part that the board has him on at all is the raise he gave her due to that relationship. That's company money. The $3 million, that was all his personal funds, and the man's got billions. I mean,
That was basically him saying, "I'll leave it on the dresser as I walk out."
Here's your 40 for the last girl.
Yeah, that's all that was.
Oh,
But
man.
I mean, he would. No matter what's going on, is he wrong for doing it? Yes, for the way he went about it. Now, him having her there and then them starting a relationship, or whatever, that's between two. They're two adults to me. That's all right. You decided to do that. That's on you guys. The money thing is slightly different. You know, the $3 million, I don't think anybody said anything about. That's between those two. That's just like you having a settlement with your ex-wife when you break up, right? Take this and go away. Don't come back. The John Laurinaitis thing got me more because the stuff that's come out since then. I don't know if you've seen this, but you know he's married to the Bella twins' mother, right?
I did not know this.
Yes. And do you know that shortly after COVID started, which was sometime around when all this stuff started with the trade-off between him and Vince for this paralegal lady, his wife was diagnosed with brain cancer, and he's cheating on her with this woman that they now paid off away. Oh yes, it's come out that his wife, the Bella twins' mother, has brain cancer, and he's married to her, and so not only has he now. He got married to the Bella twins' wife after meeting her because they joined the show and everything else. You know, that's how he met her. But so he's married to her, and now he's cheated on her while she's found out she's had brain cancer. It's like, how much lower of a human being does he look like now? No matter what.
That makes the $3 million of hush money for the Non-Disclosure Act make more sense now, because it's almost like Vince was just protecting Johnny Ace. Because, you know, Vince don't give a damn. I mean, Linda, God bless her, she must be a saint at a core, just be really cool with this, because by now, this isn't the first one. She knows Vince has been very, very, very loose in their marriage throughout the years. And I'm sure there's going to be a ton of divas before this is all said and done, it's going to show up. And for the most part, every damn one of them, it was probably consensual as hell the entire time. They were enjoying the push or the money they got because of playing around with Vince. Now it's going to be something totally different. But you're going to have one or two that's going to be like, oh, I feared for my job and I had to do it. You know.
Oh, yeah.
Which will be the difference between him and Bill Cosby, because he wasn't roofing these ladies. I mean, he was, you know, just the boss. But, I mean, if you're going to be technical like that, I mean, how many major corporations across the United States or the world do ladies do that? I mean, and I'm not knocking you. I'm just saying this happens. It's regular. It's commonplace. It's terrible. It's part of our society today. It's just the way it's been.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out for him, because if he does, it's going to be real weird to see him not there if they decide to remove him from the company. But I can't
see the WWF without him, though. I just can't.
I don't know how they would do that either, though, because again, like just this past couple of weeks, he went out there twice. He's gotten a bigger pop than any of his superstars have right now. What are they going to say?
There's not nothing. I watched the SmackDown his first appearance, because I was just like, is he at least going to come out here and address the situation and say, look, you know,
oh no,
or apologize, you know, like, hey, look, some things are going on. I'd like to apologize to the WWE universe. No, this man comes out there. My nuts are bigger than yours. How are you doing? Welcome and thank you, and leaves. It's like,
and they still cheering him.
Oh, the entire way back. He even had his, you know, his McMahon swagger coming down the aisle, and I was like, this dude. But zero fucks to give.
But do you think that they would he have gotten less cheers if he had apologized? Because the people think that this dude is so badass, he is so hardcore, he just don't care. He's just gonna come out here and say what he wants to and go on about his business, no matter what.
Just like the WWF universe or WWE universe, he probably would have got booed had he apologized.
Just think about it from the perspective of how we cheer Stone Cold Steve Austin for beating up the boss.
What?
Think about how we cheered him for beating up the boss. You know, he went out there.
That's what everyone wants to do. You know,
he went out there and he said whatever he wants, and everybody's like, "This is the greatest guy ever," because he just don't give a fuck what he says. Vince does the same thing. We're going to cheer
What
him. We're not going to
American
boo him.
doesn't want to do this to their boss occasionally? I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But, man, this is going to be the news for, like, the next month or two. Because every time you
Dude.
turn around, there's something else about it. Like I didn't hear until Friday when and you and I were talking. I was trying to catch flights home, and my flight was delayed 2.5 hours. My first one, my second one, another hour and a half. Yeah, I'm sitting there just listening to different podcasts that I don't normally listen to, and they're like, "Yeah, there's this article now that the Bella twins' mother has brain cancer, and Johnny Ace was cheating on her." It's like, oh my god,
that's pretty damn. As low as Venus is, that's pretty damn scummy right there. Your wife, that you
but
married up.
the other thing
Vow
with
before God with.
you mentioned Linda though. The other thing with Vince and Linda, and I almost forgot about this and let it fly right by me as we were talking. But she is actually they're not divorced. I don't think. I think they're separated maybe because she's living in another state trying to living there long enough to run for office in that state because she could never win in Connecticut.
Well, see, she was part of Trump's small business council. I don't know how the WWE classifies a small business. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and she was a highly touted, successful, executive there. So I don't know how she became small business, but last I heard, she was still on that. I mean, even though Biden took over, I don't think she lost.
Yeah, but I think I think they now have residents in Florida as well as Connecticut because I think she was trying to because she's always running for government office and never won in Connecticut. I think she's trying it in Florida now, but you have to be there for so long to be able to run, obviously. So I thought she was living down there or something. And I saw one of the podcasts I was listening to, and again, it's one I don't normally, so I don't know how accurate they are, but apparently they're maybe separated or she's been living there and just been away or whatever. I don't think they're legally divorced.
Well, I knew that Vince had a big mansion in Orlando, so
yeah,
that's probably
I think
where she's residing there.
And he made the comment too, and people brought it up that he made the comment on the Pat McAfee show when he was on there for that interview on there. He said it's the first time he's ever slipped up and said something about her instead of saying his wife. He said my then wife. That's what he called her when he was on there.
Oh.
And it was just a slip because you saw him after. Because if you actually watched the interview, he kind of paused for a second afterward, like shit, I shouldn't have said that.
Well, he's 73 years old. It's past time for the midlife crisis and wanting to get divorced, Vince. I mean, you're a little beyond this. You're a granddad. I mean, come on.
Have you noticed how hard he is to understand when he's on there talking now? The way he grumbles and mumbles over stuff. I'm like, Vince, you used to be very articulate. It is so hard to understand you now. Like the time
he's tough to watch. Like his face, I don't know what he done plastic surgery wise, but something around the eyes, dude. He is like a ghoul now. It is terrible.
I don't know if it's the makeup they gave him if he had some surgery or what, but that and the way he mumbles now, like he barely opens his mouth sometimes. Like especially when he had the little stint about the egg or whatever from the Rock's movie, and he had it on there, and what was it? Austin Theory took the egg or whatever. All I could understand was my egg. Where's my egg? I was like, what the hell did you say, dude?
Yeah, he's looking rough. He is looking terrible.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
Well, I mean, he's either going to die there before long or he's going to get kicked out and then die right afterwards. So, I mean, his age and the way he looks, I'm not sure how long he's got left. But yeah,
I don't know, man. His mother lived to like 90 in her 90s. So
she was like 99 before she died, dude.
Actually,
she actually broke 100 because that was right after she died. She died at like 99 or 100 or 101 or something, and Ryback made the comments about her.
Oh man, how terrible and revolting were those? Oof.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna get started on that dude. That dude's an idiot.
Yeah.
But let's jump over to some of the other ones we had. You and I didn't talk about this, and this well past its prime, so I'm not going to go into the whole thing. But the Sasha and Naomi walkout, I did want to touch on that because I wanted to hear where your thoughts were on that and what you thought about it and where you stood with it.
You know what? I'm all for talent trying to say, hey, look, this creative decision you have for us doesn't make sense. But to think just because you're the tag champions that you got, that you control the needle so much that you can just place the title down and go home like you're going to hold them hostage. And I usually don't back the WWE on a lot of their decisions because that they're just
they can be that way.
Yeah. So I don't back, but at the end of the day, you sign a contract. If you're a professional wrestler, you sign a contract. It's no different than you and I. We get a paycheck from our boss. We do what they tell us to do. You don't just say, fuck you, I'm not doing that. You can't do that. It's not good business.
Unless it's illegal or completely unethical, you cannot just, or unsafe.
Exactly.
You cannot just say, I refuse to do that. You go do it.
So to sit there because you don't agree with the way that creative is rolling for you, or who you may have to wrestle this night or that night, that to me that was very, very unbusinesslike. And I'm sure they're thinking, well, my value at AEW would be through the roof. Well, okay, maybe. But if I was Tony Khan, if he's dumb enough to sign either one of them, he's a lot dumber than I give him credit for, because they've already shown you they walk out on the biggest wrestling promotion on the planet. They'll walk out on your ass too. No matter how much you're growing and how much they may move the needle for you coming in the door, they're just not business ethical people. I wouldn't do business with them. I've seen where Sasha's already got her release completely and she's changed her look.
But does she though? Because she's saying that, and so some other people saying that WWE has not officially signed off on it.
Well, I want to say the way it rolled, her time had lapsed, but seeing as she went home, they may have her like with Rey Mysterio a few years ago. He kept staying hurt before he come back to the company this last time. The time before that, he kept staying hurt there towards the end of his career, and it was a whole year he sat home, and his contract lapsed during a year. And they're like, "No, we're not releasing you. You sat home for a year, so you still owe us a year."
Yeah, they can freeze it. They have that option in there. And with her suspension, her and Naomi both, I understand that there's, and actually Sasha's, I thought her contract still had a few more months. I thought hers wasn't out until the end of this year, first of next year.
I thought the way I understood it, Sasha's was coming to a close, but Naomi did have some time on hers.
See, I heard the reverse. I thought Naomi had,
okay.
I thought Naomi's was coming up and they were trying to negotiate hers, and Sasha still had up to like the end of the year. But either way,
well, maybe Sasha thought if she went with her, she could kind of help Naomi get a better contract, and that was their power play, and it just didn't work.
I had the same thought as you, though. It's like, okay, I have no problem with you fighting for your spot and trying to do it, because we've seen multiple people do that, and we've seen people even leave and take their ball and go home before, right? Stone Cold did it once. But the whole thing is, you did it at the start of a show that was going live. You didn't walk out, and they can say what they want to. They walked out because of the contract. They walked out on the company. You didn't disappoint the company. They're going to find a way to go on. The only thing you did was disappoint any fans you actually had there.
They Ultimate Warriored them, and it backfired. Like, Warrior got a check and was sent home after the match. They got nothing. Yeah, and if I was Vince McMahon, if I was a WWE board, let's put it that way.
Yeah, you don't want to be Vince right now.
I don't want to associate myself with Vince right now. So we're out of the WWE board. I would freeze their ass out, and I would not release them. I would hold them to whatever time we had on the books. And until they come back and completed that time, I would not release them from their contracts.
No.
And I'd starve their ass out. They wouldn't work anywhere else.
Because that's the thing. They can't. They might go and take some other bookings for like Sasha's had some TV shows in The Mandalorian and stuff. She could do something like that. But she can't go to AEW or any other wrestling Impact or any other wrestling promotion until that 90-day clause is done at the end of the contract. Whenever that contract is terminated.
I think it was WWE approved. I think anything they do has to be signed off by the WWE.
That may be, unless they do like a Jesse Ventura and join the Screen Actors Guild, then they can do whatever they want to. like he did that time for Predator. But I mean, I don't know how in depth that gets, but no matter what, if you can't leave and go to another wrestling promotion and you sit there for that long, at some point, no matter how great you might be, your relevancy disappears. There's something.
Look at CM Punk. When he went home, he was probably the most popular wrestler on the planet at that time.
Oh yeah.
And he set his ass home for 5 years. We got beat up in the UFC for a couple of fights and smeared, and then decided to come back. And don't get me wrong, it was for us wrestling fans that enjoy it. It's a huge night. For the millions of Americans that, just casually watched and was like maybe enamored with him, they didn't give two shits. They wasn't turning the channel to AEW just because he showed up there after 5 damn years and sat at home. Because by then they forgot who he was. They're the casual wrestling fan.
And let's pick on that for just 1 second before I even delve any further into the Sasha and Naomi. Is that they always talk about that demographic, that huge demographic, that 18 to 20 something, 30 something, whatever it is, right? At 18, at that age, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, if you disappear for 7 years like CM Punk,
yeah,
those people move on with the rest of their lives. They get girlfriends, they get wives, they get kids, they get jobs. That's not as important anymore.
They have families now. I mean,
they have competing priorities to take over that. It's not like this is the person like us who's, we're in our 40s. We've watched it so long now that we're not going to forget you no matter what, because it's ingrained in us. These people are going to move on with the rest of their lives. Even in
we
2
remember
years.
jobbers from 30 years ago.
Casual
wrestling. Yeah, actually, Barry Horowitz was at the event I went to 2 weeks ago. So I wanted to go, but
yeah, we don't forget about that. But these casual viewers, even 2 years to them is you're off the island of relevancy at that point, right? You are no longer relevant. You coming in might peak a little bit, but let's talk about everybody who and I don't want to leave off of them and out of WWE yet, but think about everybody who's gone to AEW from WWE. They're more over and pop more on their first 1 or 2 nights or their first couple of weeks, and then it's just they're into obscurity again. Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. You're back. It's great to see you, man. And then you go on about your business. Yeah, and then you go on about your business, and there's nothing anymore.
That was probably the biggest problem AEW had. They brought in too many big names at one time.
Yeah.
And it's not like you brought them in as a faction like the NWO. You brought them in, they all made debuts within, say, 6 weeks of each other. And they're all world champion caliber people. And when you don't put the title on them, what have they done?
Yeah.
Like Daniel Bryan, God bless him, he's tried to just elevate young talent, which I get. You need to do that. It's something that we all used to kind of complain about back in the WCW days. But look at what happens when you do that. He's kind of lost in the shuffle, and now he's out with rumored concussion.
Well, not only that, but I mean, it's just again, these people are going there and expecting to be, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. They're expecting them to boost the ratings beyond their core crowd. And it does for maybe 1 or 2 nights. And then it's like, okay, we saw you again because we hadn't seen you in a while. See you, bye. It's what's that thing Jim Cornette always says? It's like, hey, how can I miss you if you don't go away? But if you go away for too long, I don't miss you anymore because I forgot who you were.
Well, you got pro wrestling fans, which is what AEW is. Then you have sports entertainment fans, which is WWE. But that sports entertainment, those are more pop culture fans.
Yes.
So those people that went away, they didn't do shit in pop culture. It's not like they went away and went out into movies, like say The Rock or John Cena. Like, okay, John Cena has stayed relevant since not being in WWE. He's done movies, he's done all kind of things. If he showed up on AEW, okay, that's going to move some stuff because he stayed relevant in pop culture. He stayed out there. CM Punk and Daniel Bryan and a few others, they've done nothing in the meantime. And like Cesaro is rumored to, debut tonight. He's been MIA since he left earlier this year or last year in the WWE. I mean, he's done nothing. No one, you hadn't seen him. So what has he done? It's like,
And truthfully, how many people out of wrestling have made an impact on true popular culture outside of wrestling? Your Hogan's. I don't even think Andre really did, other than the fact he was an attraction, but Hogan did.
You got Hogan,
Stone Cold, Rock,
Austin to a degree because Austin was just a mega star.
Austin brought people into it who had never been into wrestling. Now, did he do a whole lot after that? Not necessarily, but people still know who he is. The Rock has transcended it, no matter what.
He has by far become head and shoulders above everyone. And who would have thought it? I mean, when you seen Rocky Maivia debut, did you think that this cat would be the biggest, highest paid actor in the planet come 2020?
No. But I mean, I guess that's my big thing with Sasha and Naomi, right? They walked out, and it's just like they thought that they were at that level. They're not. But it's also a thing, like you said, is you go to a job, unless you do something, tell me to do something illegal, immoral, or unethical, or whatever you want to call it, and I say no, well, take your butt home. I'll find somebody who can. And I know everybody's always like, well, they're athletes. They're pro athletes. Yes, they are. They work hard for what they do. And it's hard on their bodies.
It's not like a pro ball player who you're going to ask them to throw a ball game. You're asking if you ask them to lose.
That's part of their
what
job.
They're supposed to do. I'm the biggest Bret Hart fan on the planet. I mean, you know this. I mean, anyone that knows me, and I got to meet him, which is pretty damn awesome. But he was wrong in the Montreal screw job. It shouldn't have been a damn screw job. You're leading the damn company.
Just take
because
the
you're
loss.
wrestling in Canada doesn't mean you can't lose. No matter how big of a Canadian hero you are, the boss is asking you to do the damn job on the way out the door. It's what you got to do.
Yeah, but
I mean, even Hogan done that. Hogan lost to Yokozuna in his last match in WWF before he went to WCW.
Yeah,
it's part of it.
And my other thing with them too is, okay, you're getting paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year. You're making 6-7 figures, and you complain about this and take your ball and go home because you're frustrated. And you sit there and say, just like any other pro athlete now, and yes, they work hard for what they do, and it is physical jobs. But at the same time, how is that any worse than the blue collar guy who's out here fixing a phone line because a storm blew it over and he's in 112-degree weather out there trying to put a new phone line up?
Look at your linemen that are out there when it's the thunderstorms, to secure your power in rain and storms. And they're not making nowhere near the money.
And they're touching live power lines. But they don't go out there and say, "Well, I'm not going to get up there today. I'm going home." Well, guess what?
We're all going home. They're going to go without power for the next week until we're ready to go back.
You all going to be fired too. But these two can walk in there and say, "Well, I'm just going to leave this here and go home because I'm pissy." I can't back that.
WWE today, Naomi was probably making $500-600 a year. Sasha was probably in the $1 million range because she is part of that upper elite female division they had. They're both highly paid and valuable to the company. But you're not so damn valuable that you can just tell the boss I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. And even in today's WWF market, they got such a relaxed schedule now because they don't do a lot of house shows anymore.
No.
They do like a Saturday show that's now dubbed Saturday Night's Main Event. And it's actually a pretty big super show. And other than that, I don't think they do but a couple house shows a week anymore. Maybe.
Yeah.
They're not doing 300 days a year like they were, say, before COVID.
I would not hire them if I was the competition, and honestly, if I was their current employer, I would hold them as long as I could so they lose their relevancy. But I just wanted to know because we hadn't talked about this one at all, even through text. But I was not on their side. I was like, I understand what you're fighting for. I think you went about it the wrong way, and I think that the way you handled yourself was so completely unprofessional that I'd just be done with you. But I was curious as to what your thoughts were because we hadn't talked about it.
100% the same. 100% the same.
So the only other thing that I had from WWE, and they've been, I think this leads us directly into AEW too, is injuries lately have been up for everybody, but WWE's has some more serious ones, but not quite as many as AEW, I think. But Cody's injury was, man, that's one of the most nasty looking ones.
I mean, did you watch Hell in a Cell? Obviously,
yeah.
When he pulled that coat off, and because we heard things all week long. And then he pulls the coat off, and you see it's purple. I mean, it's just like, oh my God! And this dude put on a great match.
I honestly, and I'm not a Cody fan. Yes, he did put on a great match. I honestly thought at first that some of that might have even been makeup to make it look worse than it was. But as the match went on, and he was sweating buckets everywhere and leaving puddles on the ring, I was like, that ain't makeup because it ain't coming off. Because I don't care how good the makeup is, that ain't staying on.
And I know you're not an AEW guy, and you're certainly not a Cody guy, but you couldn't help but respect him after that match.
Oh, yes.
Him and Seth put on a great show to me. I mean, it was just.
I think for their ability to put on the show, yes. I think for them to say, for him to have gone out there and done that with an injury, I think two things. One, I think they were taking a little bit of a jab at AEW because it wasn't a couple of days before that CM Punk announced his injury and that he had to leave and go get it taken care of, and he couldn't wrestle. So was it this injury is just as bad, if not worse, but we're still going to go out there and wrestle just so we can kind of take a little jab at him and say, well, we still performed even though we were hurt.
Maybe.
The other thing that I don't respect him for is, yes, they said that he couldn't have torn that muscle any worse, and that's why they let him wrestle. But how do you not worry about the rest of your body, your shoulders and your biceps and everything else? It's not torn to compensate for that tear when you're doing suplexes and shit.
The only thing I view it as is, he grew up in the business. His dad was one of the biggest icons of the 70s and 80s.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just ingrained in him that, hey, baby, you get out and do the job you got to do, baby. So he went out and done it.
And I get that, and I respect him for that. But at the same time, I worry from WWE's perspective because they have nobody to replace him as a babyface, top babyface right now. They really don't.
Yeah, he
And
just went 3-0 against their biggest heel on Raw.
Yeah, and
Smishing.
even at that, I still don't think he was quite on the same level to challenge Roman Reigns. I think he needed several more months as a top babyface before he challenged Reigns. But
he definitely had to.
Who's going to step into his spot now? And could he have gotten hurt even worse in there with that torn muscle? That's my like. How did they not think that?
It did leave a void because I will say I haven't watched Raw since because he was about one of the main reasons I was watching Raw. I hate Austin Theory, and it's not the like, oh shit, this guy's making you hate him as a heel. No, he is like, I turned the fucking channel hate. There's nothing. He is so off-putting, very off-putting, and they're shoving down your throat. So I mean, there's no reason for me to watch Raw, and Raw has nobody now. I think I watched the Raw after, come out here, and they did a good job of, Seth kicking Cody's ass and sending him home.
But why did you could have turned Seth babyface right there, and he could have been your top. Because in the ring,
that made more sense. Made a lot
in the ring, him and AJ Styles are the only two they have that can go in the ring to be a top babyface and possibly one day challenge Roman Reigns.
And they're not even doing this with AJ Styles. Why would you not shove the rocket up AJ's ass right now? And because he's done shown, like when he was the top guy on SmackDown, and it was the house that AJ's built. That was some of their best ratings up until Roman, become the beast he is now. So why would you not do something with him? Or like when Seth shook his hand, I was like, okay, this, you got something here.
Maybe this is what Seth you need. Babyface right there. You could have let him leave with that, Cody leave with the injury. Everybody already knows you're injured and you're going to be out. Now, I think where they messed up with that was him trying to say that he was going to come back and win Money in the Bank then the next month, and he ain't coming back that quickly from that injury. But now let's shove a sledgehammer into it, make it sound like it's even worse. So he's going to be out for even longer. You already know he's out for months, dude. There's no way you recover that quick from that.
Yeah, we were not expecting him back. Everyone's pretty well knows he'll return at Royal Rumble. He will win the Royal Rumble and go on to face Raymond Roman. But the thing is he really going to be ready at that point? You needed this injury not to have happened. He really needed to win Money in the Bank, and then spent the rest of this year fighting some really credible heels like Edge, still in Judgment Day.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go there with that one.
Some things, you know what I'm saying? That's how his year should have played out. Now he'll return at Rumble. He'll win Rumble. This foregone, you know it. He's got what? They'll squeeze 2 pay-per-views in between their Mania. And they're like within a 6-week span, you'll have 2 pay-per-views and then Mania. So who does he face? Who elevates him? I mean, I don't give a damn if you win the Royal Rumble or not. Look, Shinsuke Nakamura, I love the guy. He's great. He won the Royal Rumble, and what happened? He lost, and he's been nothing since. He has never achieved that level again. And it's not the talent's fault. So, if they don't have like some really next level booking for him after the Rumble, no one's going to give a shit he won the Rumble and think, okay, he's on Roman's level.
And with Cody knowing you're going to be out for a while, you could have let him, like I said, you could have turned Seth face right there that same night when Cody left. Seth could have went on to challenge Roman, maybe get one of those belts off of him. Let AJ win Money in the Bank. Let the two of them fight it out until, or have something going on there. Then you got 2 top people at the top right now. Let that go until Cody comes back. Let Cody face Seth again when he comes back for the belt. Turn Seth back to a heel if you wanted to be a heel that badly, and you could have moved on from there. But no, there was nothing here. It was just kind of like a waste. We just shot ourselves in the foot.
You could tell it was a very knee-jerk reaction, so that they run Edge off again. So I don't even know why Edge hasn't even showed up since then. I don't think. You haven't done anything with AJ Styles. You put Finn Balor there, but it's not like you're using them as top heels. Because unless they're smashing and crushing everybody on that show, but okay, you got Judgment Day and Seth Rollins. That's your biggest 2 draws on that show that you're doing something with, and they're not really doing nothing with him.
No.
And on the other hand, on SmackDown, they got some panic. They done brought Brock Lesnar back. So now we're going to get Brock Lesnar and Reigns again for like the 47th time.
Yeah.
No one cares at this point. No one wants to see that match anymore. I'd much rather see Brock Lesnar come back and on Raw trying to boost something there. That would have been a smarter decision to me.
That's almost. I almost want them to do what they did with the New Day this past week and make them self-aware that nobody wants to see Brock and Roman again. When the New Day said nobody wants to see us have this rematch, we're not going to have this rematch over and over because nobody wants to see it anymore. I was like,
when they done it, I was like, you know what? You were right. You just broke the fourth wall right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They should have done that with Roman and Brock too. Been like, nobody wants to see us fight anymore. Why don't you give somebody else one of them belts and let me fight them?
I don't think they've done themselves any favors unifying the titles, honestly.
No. But, we started this conversation about Cody and his injury, but let's talk about the AEW injury. Like, they have so many people on the injured reserve list right now. And I got to wonder, you and I have talked about this outside of the show, but why are we having so many injuries at AEW? Is it because of all the high spots that they try to pull and they just can't pull them off, trying to compete to who's going to have the next best one? Is it the conditioning? Because if you look at the people who've come over, let's take Adam Cole, for instance, who has withered away to a skeleton. His girlfriend is more buff than he is at this point.
She is. And Booker T thought he brought that all out the other day. He said, this cat right here, he's so lean now that you got to wonder, is that why they're getting injured? Because, they don't have the mass to protect themselves from the bumps. So and when he comes back from his injury, which I guess he'll be back tonight, if I'm not mistaken, but he's lost 4 size. Yeah, I want to say he's in the match with he is actually in the IWGP Championship match on Forbidden Doors. Him and Switchblade, Hangman, and Okada.
Because I thought they said I thought I'd heard that he wasn't going to make it back, but that's been over a week ago. Last time I heard about it.
They announced it. It's a 4-way match. I mean, I know the guy that was in the tag match with Sting and them, where they were dubbing them dudes with attitudes. He had a fever and couldn't make the show, so now it's a 6-man versus 8-man.
But I've noticed this. It's so strange because they have so many people going out, and they keep changing their cards because of it. But I'm like, dude, is there something wrong with your conditioning and not keeping these? Because let's be honest, if you're in WWE, they don't control your gym schedule, but if you don't show up at the gym, they take notice of it. They call you out on it. I'm like, these guys, what's going on?
I understand no one wants to wrestle 300 days a year. You won't. There's no life outside of wrestling. But if you're not taking these bumps consistently, if you're only taking bumps once a week for TV, at some point you're opening yourself up too. Because I mean, that's where Kurt Angle was talking about when he returned to WWE a couple of years ago. He was only taking a few bumps here and there at TV. It was harder for his body, and where he hadn't been taking them consistently, the year or two prior to that due to injuries, his body was just like, he's like, well, when I was in the motion of doing it, you stay in it. Once I quit doing it and then trying to get back to that, it's like, ugh. And so these guys, in AEW, they don't really do house shows at all, I don't think. I mean, they might do a random spot here or there, maybe something kind of big, but for the most of them, unless they take independent bookings, they're only wrestling on TV and pay-per-view. And their pay-per-views is like every 2 months or so, which I do give them credit for that right there. You don't need a damn pay-per-view every month.
No, you don't.
But now their schedule is not very. Yeah, they need some better something in place to keep these guys ring conditioned. Because your body can look $1 million damn bucks, and if you're not used to taking those bumps, I'm sure it's hell on the back. I mean, CM Punk guy said he hurt himself jumping into the damn crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, you win the title on pay-per-view, you go out there after the match the next night and jump in the damn crowd like an idiot and injure yourself before what would have been a massive 6-man tag match at a pay-per-view.
And probably the biggest run that they were going to have of anything.
Oh yeah, I mean, they could have kept that momentum. Him and FTR would have drew big numbers. Versus Bullet Club or whoever they were teasing, but and even him and Tanahashi would have been a really great one-on-one match. But now you got an interim championship, which I will say I am a little more in favor of that than the stripping of the title, because in major sports like with boxing or UFC, that's what they do. They're champion. They don't strip the champion.
I don't have a huge problem with it. I don't mind the interim stuff as long as when they come back, the very first, shot at the title goes, or combining that title, that should be the first match back when that person gets back between whoever's got the belt, the interim title.
Yeah, you don't want to stretch that out. I mean, if say CM Punk were to come back in 2 weeks, whatever their next big show is, that needs to be the unification.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you can have
I will say this
for that.
Forbidden Door, as stacked as this card is for tonight, it's got some poor timing because it was kind of jamming there after the last pay-per-view. It was like you didn't, you were already building it, but you had a pay-per-view. So it kind of got forgotten a little bit. Then you shove it back up. But like literally this Wednesday, they got a massive AEW show lined up that's touted as big as a pay-per-view, the Blood and Guts.
Well, and then there's a lot of politics to it because the CMLL and the 8 AAA people can't be on it.
Andrade was unable to be on the show because of that.
But there's other stuff with this Forbidden Door too that it just didn't make any sense to me. Like, you built this up with half the talent that could have been there to build the storyline. Some of them couldn't come to the U.S. because of the shows they had in Japan. There's no real connection to explain to the casual fan who these people are from Japan. If you're not a wrestling fan, do you know who Tanahashi is? Or Takeshita or whatever his name is, Takashita?
Well, like Will Ospreay, he's touted as being probably one of the greatest in the world, and Zack Sabre Jr. He's wrestling tonight. Probably classified as one of the most greatest pure wrestlers out there right now. However, I might know that, and there's a lot of the AEW fans. 90% of the AEW fans will know that. There's a 10% that don't know, but their crowd are mostly amazing. 99% of the WWF market or WWE market, I don't know why I keep saying WWF today, but they don't know who the hell these people are. And they're classified as wrestling fans, but they're more sports entertainment. So they don't know who the hell people in New Japan is.
For all this hype about it, it's not moving your needle. It's just giving fan service to your current fans.
You're going to have a big bump in Japan because the New Japan market will buy this pay-per-view. Okay. And your AEW, I will probably go on to say at least 50% of their AEW fans will buy this pay-per-view. And at $50 a pop, I will say, even as a hardcore wrestling fan, I am at the point now. It's like Vince has ruined the pay-per-view market for pro wrestling. Whether you want to say it or not, I mean, when you get that pay-per-view free every month for a $9 subscription, so I mean, it's not free, but
it's a $5 subscription. You don't mind the commercials.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get the network and these pay-per-views on top of thousands of other shows. So you're essentially getting it for free. Yeah. All those are free now to where they used to be 30, 40, and then 50 for WrestleMania. Now you're charging, AEW charges what was a WrestleMania price. And I will say now, they give you a show. It starts at 7, 8 o'clock, and it will go to 12. They go, every one I've got has went to 12.
It's too much show for me, though, man.
A great show. I'm in favor of a 3-hour show for a pay-per-view.
For a pay-per-view, yeah.
Beyond
that, it's just
I like the SmackDown and I like the Dynamite format where you got 2 hours. I'm not big on 3-hour Raws. No, 3 hours to me is too much for television.
It's basically 2 hours of wrestling and an hour of filler.
Yeah, so I mean, I like how SmackDown and Dynamite does 2 hours for weekly wrestling. And 3 hours for a pay-per-view is plenty. And you can pack a lot of really great wrestling matches into 3 hours if you cut on the Gaga down. So...
this 4, 5, 6 hours, I'm going to spend as much time as I'm going to spend working one day watching wrestling. That's just too much for me. I can't binge that.
Well, if you watch the pre-show, it starts at 7. So you watch them do the hype, and then there's usually squeeze in 2 matches, like a Jungle Boy match or something like that. And then
who's also out after?
Yeah, there you go. Which I will say, Christian's turn was beautiful, and that is great long-term storytelling. I mean, they done the build, the mentorship, but the whole time there's subtle things he does that's like the son of a bitch is gonna turn on him.
Yeah.
And when he did, then he told he got on to the mother and told her she gave birth to a piece of shit. I was like, they brought his daddy into it this week, his dead father into it, and I was like, oh man, yeah. He was like, they've got a really great heel brewing right there if they'll do something with it beyond, whatever they do with Jungle Boy and Dinosaur.
Yeah, I think the other big thing for me with AEW is that, besides the injuries we've been talking about, and they've got this Forbidden pay-per-view coming up, which, again, is not going to grow their market, but it's great for their current fan base. But can you tell any of these things about why people are getting hurt or why this pay-per-view is badly timed? Can you tell any of this to Tony Khan? Because this is the most defensive dude in the world when it comes to his stuff. His idea was the only right idea, apparently. It got so bad because I was watching the interview that he did along with CM Punk after Double or Nothing, and they were asking him about the Eric Bischoff feud between Punk and Bischoff, and Punk was like, "I'm just not going to respond to it anymore. I'm done with it." And Tony Khan goes on for like 30 minutes about how Eric Bischoff has no idea that this was the biggest, what was it that he called it? Something about the biggest flop or financial return or whatever in wrestling history. And Tony Khan goes on about how it was so great for the company and stuff, and then won't let it go. CM Punk finally says, "We're just going to move on from that," and shuts him up.
Tony, you could tell he's the shelter kid that didn't ever get picked on. Like, he didn't ever ride the city school bus where you had to ride all the kids that were really rough and picked on every damn body. He never done none of that, you can tell.
Oh, dude, and his whole argument there about the Bischoff thing is he's like, he has no idea about our financials. This is the biggest financial gain for our company. He said in wrestling history. He didn't say for your company, because you cannot tell me, and I'm sorry, you cannot tell me that CM Punk showing up on AEW had the same financial return on investment as Kevin Nash and Scott Hall showing up on WCW and starting the NWO.
Now that kicked off a mainstream boom in professional wrestling.
Or Steve
them showing up over there.
Yeah.
That had people that didn't watch wrestling start talking about wrestling at the water cooler. I mean, and showing up and watching, because it was like, holy shit, these WWF guys, they're showing up on WCW. I mean, this might be real.
Or the
suspended belief,
The ECW, WCW invasion storyline, even that had more financial success than CM Punk showing up in AEW. Now, was it a huge flop for AEW? Probably not, but he said in wrestling history. So I'm thinking he's talking about the entire broader spectrum of wrestling. Was it the same return on investment? No, it was not. Not to me.
That's probably the biggest. Tony Khan has a great deal of passion for pro wrestling, and I can commend that. He oversells his hand and tries to really. I read something yesterday where he was saying that they were getting near being in as many markets as WWF, being viewed, because there's so many countries watching them now. And he's almost trying to say we're on that level. No, you're not.
No.
You are a little brother right now. You were what WCW was in '95. And don't get me wrong, WCW was viewed in millions of homes every week. But they were not WWF at the time.
No, and
they didn't get there until the NWO kicked off. And then they become like, boom, and WWF becomes a little brother. But
there's a large group of people who don't even know what AEW is. Now, there's more. The main you can walk up to the general population and ask if they know what WWE is. And I've done this because you're traveling for work every now and then. People are like, "Hey, we go out to eat," and they're like, "Hey, what are you into? What do you like? What do you collect?" And I was showing pictures of some of my collection, especially like my belts, because you've seen them. I've got 5 belts now.
Nice.
All of them are WWE except for this one. They're like, "What's this AEW?" Because they're like, "Oh, those are from WWF." I was like, "Well, WWE," because they don't know it. They just know what it is. They're like, "What's that one?" I was like, "That's AEW." "What is that?" "All Elite Wrestling." "Where is that from overseas or somewhere?" They have no idea what it is.
Walk through an airport. I mean, and as much traveling as you do, well, just walk through an airport and say, "Hey, have you ever heard of professional wrestling or sports entertainment?" And they're going to say, "Oh, WWE."
Yeah.
They're not going to say, "Oh, AEW."
Yeah.
I'm not knocking AEW because I'm a fan of the AEW. I've been there since day one. I liked it. It's a nice alternative. But I was also WCW more than WWE, just because I like the more realistic matches. But I will say that you're a fool if you're not smart enough to say, you know what? Even in 2000, before they shut the doors on WCW, their ratings were far higher than AEW has gotten. Well, right now, their ratings were higher than what Raw and SmackDown's getting.
Oh yeah.
Which means they were still profitable in the end. They just, after the boom, it looked to be less profitable. But I mean, God, here's such a.
That's another one of Tony Khan's things too. Is thought how his ratings are better than Raw or SmackDown. And I'm like, your rate, how are you gauging that? Because you're getting ratings because you're only on TV for TBS and TNT, which are not on most streaming platforms, or don't have their own, I should say. WWE stuff is on so many streaming platforms. How do they have a clue what the true ratings are?
I don't
I
think
imagine
anyone
whatever.
does anymore, honestly, because I mean, so how many
No,
people just TiVo stuff or stream later?
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think that AEW's is probably closer to what their true that because of the way they're on, what TV they're on. I think their numbers are probably closer to their actual ratings. WWE's are probably understated by a good bit because you
Possibly.
think because they're on the network television, that's where they're getting their ratings. But that same show is on network television tomorrow night now is on Hulu as well as Peacock. So what's the ratings they're getting from those? They have no clue because there's no way to measure that.
And SmackDown is not in a good position being on Friday nights. Friday night is not an optimal night for any program,
No,
honestly.
no, that's
Because
the night to get
majority of
by.
your crowd is going to go out. They're going out to dinner with their family. They're going out to bars. They're going out to clubs. They're going to do something with family and friends, or girlfriends, fiancés, so forth and so on. That's just not an optimal night for any television, unless, with the exception of the family crowd that just stays home, or the recluse that would rather get some take out food and go home and watch TV.
Yeah,
So it's not a good night to where Monday and Wednesday, those are optimal nights because most people are home on Monday and Wednesday nights. They're not hitting on much, you know,
yeah,
the
yeah.
work week.
Well, and again, I brought that up because I wonder if Tony really listens to any of that stuff. But the other big thing they got going on in the argument now is the whole word is the work with MJF start and stop for them, and that's a big one
It's
because
starting to look more like a shoot than a work. I mean, the cat has not been on TV since, and he is not mentioned.
no, and that's to me that's starting to, whether that's a shoot or a work shoot or whatever. It's highlighting some visible cracks in their foundation. They probably shouldn't highlight on television.
He
Unless,
opened a lot of eyes to some things that you didn't want highlighted. I mean, he pointed out some
yeah.
things that's like, okay, whether even if you want this to build some steam, he kind of pointed out some major flaws of
Oh,
your. He threw all the other talent under the fucking bus. When you're dropping each other on your heads and hurting each other, and I'm out here, I make you feel and get bigger pops. It's
oh,
like,
dude, that and the
ooh,
separation of talent level where they're talking like he's talking like, yeah, you got a few good people here, so but everybody else sucks, and you're trying to pay all of us, but you bring in these people from WWE and you're paying them more. What about that? It's like,
you're
dude,
like, do I got to be a former WWE talent for you to pay me? And it's like, ooh.
he's like, I got Bruce Pritchard's phone number, which
Well, if you
they're
were
doing
trying
it
to
more
build
now.
Tony Khan into the next McMahon, and that's where you're going with this, okay, maybe.
That's not what he
But
wants from all of his
uh,
interviews and the way you watch him. That's not he. I don't know, dude. As much
well,
as
he's not
I,
good on camera anyways. So I hope he
God,
never
no.
takes that position because he is terrible on the camera. He can like with these cracked out eyes, and he just looks really uncomfortable in front of the camera.
He's very defensive and very off-putting, and it's just like at some point you just want to say stop, go back to the back, sit down, and it's like nobody's going to tell him this because he's the boss.
Well, where a great heel can kind of roll with the crowd, and you have to kind of because if you're a really great heel, you're going to hear some horrible stuff from that crowd at some point. I could
Yeah.
see him just melting under being called an asshole out there if they started
Oh,
now.
dude, that
Or started chanting WWE or something like that. Like, at WWE shows they would chant ECW.
and
He would fall to pieces.
at some point somebody needs to tell him too that he needs to sit down with some of his talent and talk to him that thinks that they are that act just like him now. Chris Jericho, everything that he does is the greatest thing ever in his own mind, and I'm like, dude, that was not good at all. Where
Yeah,
did you?
what is this wizard shit he's doing?
What with that and his old GFY thing he tried starting his trademarks and stuff? He's like, but him talking about how great that football field match they had was, and this, and I was like, dude, did you not
That,
watch the
that
same
was
thing I saw?
that was a drizzle of shits. That was a DS award winner. It
But
was.
he talks about how that inspired everything else that AEW is doing right now because it started there. I'm like, no, it did not. And it's just like him talking about how innovative Matt Hardy was to teleport onto the field because that was Chris Jericho's idea of like, that was terrible. And then you try to give the dude brain damage with a chair.
Yeah.
But since we're
He keeps doing this. I'm a wizard. I'll shoot a fireball at you.
You didn't even throw the fireball properly. It came off terrible.
Fuji was a superior fireball thrower. Just want to say this.
Yeah, well, before we leave AEW and finish up for today, let's since I brought up Matt Hardy, let's touch on his brother for just a moment. I don't know if they're competing for who's going to get the beer off the pole first, him or Jimmy Uso, but
did you not see the meme I posted on our page where
I saw that? That's what made me think of
they were going to have a license in the bank match?
How did this dude get rental cars? I mean, it clearly, I guess they didn't take his license away because it says in some of the reports that he's supposed to have one of those ignition switches that can't start until you do the breathalyzer, and that allows the ignition to actually start. So he's getting rental cars. He's going to shows. Nobody's catching on the fact that he shouldn't be driving anyway. And I hate to say it, but the way he left OD, they're like, oh, he was not under the influence. We tested him. They tested him for drugs. Nobody said he wasn't drunk. And that's what he.
Yeah.
And since
I think he started trying to do too much in the ring. He's trying to mask it with alcohol, apparently.
Well, since he's got AEW, every match has been something looks off with him. And is he covering that up because he's hurting and he's covering it up with the alcohol? And which came first, the injuries or the alcohol that caused the misstep?
I think he might have already been easing into the old drink a little bit. But the match he had in the mall where he took the big bump off the ladder, you could tell after that he was hurt. I mean, I think he done some damage in that match. Which I will commend Tony Khan on this. He as soon as this come out, he didn't just immediately throw him under the bus like WWE would have done with everyone but Jay.
Sure.
But he didn't just throw him under the bus immediately. But then he did suspend him once he got the details, and he actually he put an article out, I want to say Friday, and he said, "Look, this is Jeff Hardy's last chance because Jeff Hardy just entered a rehabilitation program again." I mean, I think Scott Hall is probably the only person with more stints in and out. But that being said, I mean, he did go on record and say, look, he's in a rehabilitation program, but this is his last chance. So if he fucks up again here, hey, we've done what we can do. And that gives the fans a little hope that we might get to see him return, but I don't want to see him return doing those spots again. He needs to figure out a different style. I mean, I get as a face, that's what got him over. But I mean, he is an aging talent.
Well, here's the other thing too, though. He's going into rehab, but his court date's not set till July, and they're saying he could face up to 5 years imprisonment because this is past his third offense. Yeah. So by the time he comes out, he's going to be off the island of relevancy too. He may have been there long enough to get back into it, but he's I don't know.
You or I would be sitting in jail for 5 to 6 years. He's a pretty decent sized celebrity. He'll wind up getting off due to the fact that he went to rehabilitation. He'll probably get some probation, service where he has to go do like some meet and greets at, say, Make-A-Wish type places and whatnot, or speak at a shit ton of AA type things. But he'll get out. I don't foresee him doing any jail time. But does he? Should? Yes. Yes, because he's no different than you and I. Because he's famous and got money doesn't make it any different for anyone.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what plays out with him. And the whole way it went out. Like my only criticism of Tony Khan is, give him time before you announce, hey, he's still with us or he's not. But I think he did wait too long because TNT or TBS, whichever one it is, because they're all owned by the same thing. The new CEO of Time Warner from AT&T and Discovery or whoever it is that bought him now actually came up and said, you need to announce that you're suspending him before he actually did it. Because they put out there saying, we want him suspended before AEW sent the suspension notice out. It's like, did you wait too long and throw yourself under the bus with the new boss? Because he owns your TV rights.
Yeah. And they tried to do some damage control a little bit by saying, oh, well, he was never going to be in that match on that Wednesday. They were advertised. It was never really going to be a triple threat. We had already scripted it where he was be injury type angle or something beforehand. But it was 2 weeks later before that comes out. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
Do yourself any favors here.
But did you notice that he did everything in his power, Jeff Hardy did, to make this, to throw basically Tony Khan under the bus with it? Because this happens at what, 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. So you're drunk that early in the morning, but you get out of the car and you fail a sobriety test and he's wearing a Jacksonville Jaguars shirt.
Like, branding.
Did you try everything to get this guy in trouble?
Yeah, when I originally read the article, I was assuming it was like at 12 o'clock at night.
That's what I thought too.
And
then I
like
found out it was in the
left
morning.
some kind of show or whatever. It was 12 o'clock at night.
It's the way it's the way TMZ worded it first. Like he had been at this show, and then he was busted.
Yeah.
He was busted the next morning after all those shows.
Yeah, they were saying I kept saying a 12 a.m. show, and I was like, well, okay, I mean it's night. I mean, yeah, he probably, because let's be honest, if you go out to eat with your family, you drink 2 or 3 beers with your steak, you're DUI.
Yeah.
You're not drunk, but you're DUI.
Are you 4 times the legal limit?
Well, yeah.
And then he tells officer that he was drinking Fireball. I was like, why would you even tell him that, other than the fact that you're drunk, I guess? But he gets called. The call went out because he was swerving all over the road, and I'm like, who are these people that are seeing him this early in the morning? Because I was the same way as you, and then I find out, oh, this is like 9:30 in the morning. This was families calling him. Yeah, this was parents with kids out there calling him. It's like, oh shit.
Oh yeah, because he's grinning like a jackass eating briars when he gets out of the car. He's just like,
but he took so long to get out of the car. I wonder if he was sitting in the car thinking, well, do I get out and sell this, or do I get out and just accept it?
Yeah, he just sat down on the ground. He's like, I'm here. You can see him trying to get him up, and he's just like, I'm here. So I will say, the Fireball will get you. It giveth and taketh away.
Yeah, well, it didn't taketh away his license quick enough, I guess.
There you go.
Oh, but we are running a little close on time, so we'll move on. I think the only other thing that I had before we jump into our nerd out section was, and I don't know, I'm sure you've seen where Joe Quesada left Marvel Comics. After a 22-year run there as editor-in-chief, but you probably haven't seen this because I'm not sure if you order as many as I do nowadays, but I placed my order, the pre-orders come out for the month of June, that's for 2 months from now when the books come out. Marvel is so behind on releasing their books. All but about 5 books from Marvel that I ordered on my June pre-order have been. I've sent cancellation notices to say this will be resolicited because they are so. It says they'll be resolicited because they're so far behind on books that they're like 2 months behind on getting stuff out. That 2 months from now they canceled every book they got just about to try and catch up on their release dates. I was like, either they failed because he left, or he left at the right time because he saw it coming.
Yeah, and he said he's going to still do some stuff with them moving forward, but I think he's seen the writing on the wall, and he's like, let's jump ship now.
Well, and I buy far more Marvel books than I do DC. Now, I went through my DC books. Everything I buy in DC is miniseries, except for 3 titles, which is like Flash, Action Comics, and Superman, Son of Kal-El. Everything else is miniseries. There are no regular series books either going or that are worth the crap. Marvel has much better books that are going. And much better writing. Now, it ain't great, but it's just much better than what DC has, but they can't get their stuff out on time.
Yeah, the only thing I'm currently buying from our sponsor, the Zone Collectibles, Tiffin, Georgia, is the Spider-Man titles, whether it's got him or Ben, and then I'm getting a Ghost Rider book. And I literally have a stack of them that I'm staring across that on the table over there that I really need to read because I just haven't even started reading. I dove back in and started collecting and buying, and I hadn't started reading yet. Just things have been chaos.
I got a shipment in yesterday, and I think it was 38 books. 3 of them were for my son. So for me, it was 35, and then out of those 35, maybe 10 of them might have been DC, and only 2 of those were regular titles. The rest of them were all miniseries. So it's the state of it's not real great anyway, but I thought it was interesting. I wanted to share that with you. Hey, I got cancellation after cancellation notice last week. Like I'd get an email of 4 or 5 titles. When I looked at what I've ordered for June, and it's still going to ship in 2 months from now on time, is the stuff that Marvel has already kept up with, like a couple of their X-Men books that they're on time with already, and then their Marvel Fortnite crossover, which they have a contract they have to release on time because it has codes that go to the game in it.
Joe might have said, I'm outie, bitches.
Yeah, I wonder if he did. But with that, let's jump over to our nerd out section. And for anybody who hasn't been here before, and for those who haven't been here in a while, because we haven't been here in a while, this is where we ask random questions of each other, put each other on the spot and answer some of them. Feel free to share your answers to the questions in the comments, or if you want to expand on one we gave, feel free to jump in. Usually it's about the topic of the day, since we kind of did a different show today, just trying to catch up on some conversation. I didn't really have mine are not necessarily related to what we talked about today, which is just random stuff that we wanted to share and go over. And as we change the format of the show a little bit, we're still going to keep nerd out section. We do know that because this is one of our favorite sections to do. But we're going to have some different ways we get to the topics of the day and a little bit less news. So nerd outs might be a little more random sometimes in the future, but for today, mine are pretty random. And Hassel, I don't know if you got yours, if you want to go first or if you want me to go first. Now, I will say mine's a 2 or 3 part question, so there's multiple stuff in here.
I'll go first. Since we delved so far into pro wrestling pretty much this week and the Forbidden Door or whatnot, you don't have to choose New Japan people, because I know you're not very big into New Japan. But what would you say is your Forbidden Door match? And it doesn't have to be one-on-one. It can be any style match. It can be any, competitors.
Any competitors from any time period, or current competitors, or does it have to be in New Japan and AEW, or what?
No, I mean, if you want to go AEW, WWE, that's fine.
So mine would actually be, I would like to see a, you know what? I'm not going to go singles because I was thinking about singles. I think I actually want a tag team match. And this would have been a WCW WWE Forbidden Door match. I would have liked to see Sting and the Ultimate Warrior against Kane and the Undertaker.
Ooh.
Yeah, I always want to see Sting and Ultimate Warrior would have been a good one-on-one, I think, because they're not going to be great, but I mean, just the star power and the not necessarily wrestling move-wise, but competition-wise, you want to see that. But Sting and Undertaker.
Who doesn't want to see the Blade Runners versus the Brothers of Destruction? I mean, come on.
Yeah, but with their current gimmicks, not the Blade Runner gimmick, because that was not successful.
It was not.
That would have been interesting to see those guys, though, just to see all 4 of them. That's star power in the ring.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I like that. So you just changed the whole match I had. I had a match in mind, but I'm off.
Curveball.
You did. You got
been working on my pitching with those terrible balls that you can flick off into the stands with your knuckles.
Because I can think of so many great tag team matches. I want to go the easy route and say a ladder match between Penta and Eddie Guerrero for the Cruiserweight title. However, I'm going to say an elimination chamber with Steve Austin, Hangman Adam Page, AJ Styles, Roman Reigns, Kenny Omega, and Tanahashi.
That would be interesting.
I started to throw some more WCW people in there, but I mean, I can just see those guys working well.
That would be an interesting to watch. If you'd have went ladder and Money in the Bank match and put some of those folks like a AJ Styles, a Will Ospreay, a Kenny Omega, some of those high spot guys in there together in a Money in the Bank match, that would be an interesting match.
Well, with like in prime Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, and Eddie Guerrero.
Yes. That would be really Money in the Bank. You could print money with that match.
That would be interesting.
I'll pass the board to you.
So yeah, like I said, I had a couple of things because mine is more of a look ahead sort of thing, and it's not necessarily even wrestling related, but we're about halfway through the year at this point. Next week is halfway point, really, if we could look at the next Friday. But so I just wanted that, and I've got like 4 questions here, so I'll try to ask them. We can answer them kind of quickly together. But what are you most looking forward to in the second half of the year? Like whether it's wrestling something or movie, comic, whatever.
Probably Thor. We got Thor next week.
Yeah, 2 weeks. It's the 8th, I think.
2 weeks.
Yes, July 8th. Yeah.
So I mean, probably Thor.
I've got that, and my kind of a secondary to that is Black Adam, because the more I see of it, the more I like of it.
It does look really great. It does. Yeah, I don't know if I'll go to the theater to watch it, but
I'll probably make a theater for both of those, but I like going to the theater. So, but yeah, Thor's the other one I had, and then that one looks amazing. The more you see of it, you flick too hard.
everything I see, it looks like it has the humor of the Ragnarok, which I loved.
Yeah,
But it does have a seriousness to it, and but even like they kind of with the guy killer, like Bale is putting a little humor in there because like he was kind of quirking it up a little bit in the one line I've seen they released. So it's like,
and he looked so much better on screen than his figure did. His figure made him look so
yeah,
terrible, but on screen he doesn't look bad.
no, it looks like he's gonna have multiple looks. So I'm kind of hoping he evolves throughout
Yeah,
the movie. So we'll see. I'm pretty pumped about that though.
yeah. So my next part of my question is, what are you least looking forward to in the second half of the year? See, I made you think about that one.
You did.
It's hard to come up with. Okay, I'm still gonna deal with this, but I don't really want to, but I feel like I have to, sort of thing.
I guess the current actually I already know. Let me.
You
The
can't say
Atlanta
that real quick.
Falcons football season is going to be
Oh,
extremely underwhelming. We are
well,
going to have
yeah.
any Atlanta Falcons fan out here. If you don't already know that we have shit the bed already, and we're going into the season knowing this, no matter how they try to hype and say we're going to be of the dark horse, no, we're not. No. We're going to be the Browns this season. We're going to out-Brown the Browns, who can't start their extremely expensive starting quarterback due to a 1-year suspension. So, yeah, that's going to be bad. You better have a backup team. Go Broncos.
I put the Dark Crisis miniseries on there because I've gotten the first issue of it and I've just flipped through it and I'm like, dude, this just looks terrible. I'm still going to read it because it's going to tell you where they're going with their stuff for the next year to year and a half, but before they do their next crisis and reboot. But it just looks terrible.
I think they're trying to hype up the new heroes too much, and they're going to do it at the expense of the others, which is what they've just been doing for the last year or so. And I don't see that.
And that's my problem with it. But yeah. So to move on, because I've still got two more parts of this. Let's see. What do you think will be the biggest disappointment in the second half of the year that you're hoping is going to be decent? Something that you thought, hey, I think this is going to be good. I hope it's going to be good, but you're worried it's not going to be. Besides your Atlanta Falcons, so this is not just your least, thing, but the one that you want to be good, but you're not sure it's going to be.
The trajectory of AEW.
Oh, that's interesting.
I see them kind of taking a big dip between now and the first of the year. I think they'll rebound well, but for the foreseeable future, I think they're going to take a big dip.
That's interesting.
I hope not, but I think they will.
I could feel you on that. I didn't think about that, but that's a fair one. Honestly, what I put was after seeing the previews for it, I wanted this to be better because I like the character, but I don't think the She-Hulk TV show is going to be. I think that's going to probably be Marvel's worst TV show so far.
I think the only thing that's going to sell that show is Abomination's cameo, because you're going to want to see where they go with that, and the Hulk kind of cameos. I think the episodes, if that they aren't in, will be the lulls, where it's like,
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah. And so the last part of this is, what do you think is going to be your sleeper hit for the second half? The thing that you thought, kind of like that you thought, very similar to the last question, but the reverse, right? That you thought might not be good, but might actually just pop out and surprise you.
Probably that the finish to the Eternals and X-Men deal.
Yeah, that one.
I think that's going to kind of, because I went into that with very low expectations. I've kind of been keeping track with it here and there, and I know it's still early in the stage, but what I see they're moving towards, I think that's going to wind up being pretty good.
That one I think might be. I actually had that in mind, but what I ended up
It's hard
going
to
with
say
is,
as a sleeper hit because I know Marvel, that's a big event for them, but to
yeah,
me, with the expectations I went into,
fair.
like when I initially, read the, parameters of it, what I was like, nah, you're just you're hoping somebody will start streaming that damn movie on Disney Plus by reading this. And I mean, so I went into it very low, and then it wound up like I see some things here or there, and I like the Thanos' great uncle or whatever. It's like, ooh, see where you're going. I like this. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, it looks somewhat interesting to me now from what I first saw of it. I did not choose it. I actually picked Miss Marvel just because I started watching it, and I had been thinking about this question before I actually started watching. But after watching it, it's like it's caught my attention so well. I'm like, this is going to be. I can foresee this ending just as highly as I think of it right now, and being much better than I originally thought. Because I thought this was going to be the worst one they did, but honestly, it's been pretty good.
yeah, I mean, I haven't got to start it one, so I can't wait one another. I did see where was it Kevin Feige or however you say his name. He has said that very soon you will know the outline of where Phase 4 is.
Yeah,
Like it's going to become very like they've been secretive and hush, and you hadn't got there like what direction they're really going. It's about to become very abundantly clear. So I'm assuming there's something in Thor that will kind of whether it be the post credit scene or what you're finna know.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to understanding that as well. But with that, I think that brings us pretty much to a close this week. Again, a lot of random topics, but we hadn't had a chance to talk in a while, so hopefully everybody enjoys that. And if you kind of like this format and the random stuff, feel free to give us some comments down below and let us know. Because again, we are working on the format of the show for future episodes. But before we get out of here, let's give a shout out to a couple of folks. Give a shout out to our friend Daniel Garcia. His Kickstarter for Xyber Ronin is over, but the comic is coming out very soon, and I think we've talked to him about coming on and talking about it some more again in the
Yeah,
near
I
future.
mean, he's actually wanting to come on the next time we're on, so we can get everything lined back up to be back next week like we want to. He's willing to be here.
Yeah, so stick around for more updates from him. And you can always find updates on his stuff on his Facebook at Daniel Garcia and on Instagram at D Garcia Comics. Remember, check out our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles, for all your nerdy needs. You can find them at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com, at The Zone Collectibles on Facebook, and in their store at 305 South Main Street in Tifton, Georgia. Help them support their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. We don't have a giveaway this week. As we've been kind of out of pocket a little bit, we've gotten a little off schedule with some of that, so we'll have some of that coming back again. And some more announcements on some bigger ones, which we were trying to do earlier, but I kind of messed that up by being gone for several weeks. But we'll get that fixed up.
I had announced a few on social media, so I apologize. And some things we're on track now. Let's just put it this way: we're moving forward to a brighter day.
Yeah, we'll have some more information out on the next episode. We'll have a chance to work that out.
We do have some very, very big giveaways, courtesy of the Zone, and then one of our listeners who is currently away in Kuwait doing military training. He has graciously gifted us some really, really cool items. So we have some big things. We're just trying to figure out exactly how to get them to you guys and
how to make them a fair competition for them as well, right? But we will be getting back to some of that in the coming weeks, and you'll hear more about it on here, and we'll post it on social media as well. But speaking of that, before we sign off, Hassel, how about you tell them where they can find us on social media?
You can find us on Twitter at Nerdy MR Show. You can find us on Facebook at Hassel Hutchison via Nerdy Manroom Show, and you can find us on Instagram at the Nerdy Manroom Show.
And remember, if you enjoyed this video or any of our other content, give us a like, subscribe, comment, or share down below. Join us here next time as we're going to try to get our guest on here. Hopefully, we're going to have Mr. Daniel Garcia on here. And we do have one other guest that we had promised before, and just with all of my travel, we couldn't line it up. But we're going to still try to line that one up because I got some questions I want to ask and learn about what he actually does as well. So we're going to try and work those out in the coming weeks. And but until then, live nerdy and enjoy your wrestling.